My name is Sheena Raikundalia, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Kuza Biashara, which is an ag tech. We connect farmers with markets and service providers through rural youth across the country, and we're in 7 countries. But I do a lot of other stuff as well. So I sit on the board of Kenya, I do a lot of government advisory work. And I'm just an ecosystem player, so glad to be here. Local capital likes investing in land and stock markets. Traditionally, that's what we've been taught. That's what our grandparents did, that's what our fathers did, so that's kind of what we do. So unfortunately, I think that's been the norm. And secondly, the whole idea of investing in startups, that's a very sort of Western language concept. The reality is, as Kenyans, we do invest in business. Like, how many of us have invested in our friends' business, our friends' restaurants? We invest in shamas. We do it, but maybe it's not called investing in startups because that's just not how we see it. Unfortunately, right now, even forget just Kenya, but Africa, the perception of risk is very different. So when you live in Kenya and you work in Kenya and you've had a business in Kenya, you understand what are real risks and what are perceived risks. The fact that our capital comes from the West or international funds, actually global funds, it means they don't really understand what our risks are. They have their perception of risk. So I think it's really, really important. If we want to get the risk pricing right, we need to have local funds. We still need global funds. We should always, and I think the idea of co-investment, local funds and international funds working together, I think is a really good solution. One is the idea of sort of risk. Right? As a pension fund, should you be investing in startups which by their nature are very risky? Remember, pension funds actually are supposed to be for old age, etc. So startups are inherently risky. So do I think all pension funds should be investing in startups? No. Maybe a small percentage? Yes. Startups will fail. That's the nature of startups. The whole point of startups is high risk, high return. So I think it needs to be a blended strategy. So you need to have some portfolio allocation to startups, but then there should be others. Now that's for the pension fund sides. For corporates, etc., I think this is a huge opportunity that they're missing. The reality is corporates need to invest in startups because otherwise the startups will disrupt them and they won't see it coming. So I think right now corporates may be operating out of, oh, but I'm so profitable, I'm so good, why do I need to do it? And unfortunately, we see the example in the world, right? Nokia didn't do anything wrong and look what happened. So I think the corporate world needs to start thinking, how do you invest? Because that's how you get ideas. This is something that needs to be, again, co-created for the local market. One of the things, as I mentioned, was around incentives for angel investing, and that's worked in a couple of other markets like the UK, where angel investing really, really took off because of some tax initiatives that were given. So that could be one. Second is sort of like blended models in terms of equity and debt, in terms of working with what's already existing. So I think there are lots of different things that need to be done, but first of all, we need to sort of de-risk and reduce the opportunity cost for investing in startups. One of the things that the public sector can do is open markets. So if the public sector can become a consumer, buy from startups, help startups sell across Africa, open the markets for startups, you see, then money will follow. It's not necessarily that government shouldn't have to fund startups. I don't think the government's role should be to fund startups. Yes, some catalytic funding is great, but enable startups and businesses to grow. So buy from them, make it easier for them to do business, make it easier for them to expand across Africa, create an enabling environment which makes it easier for other investors to come in. What Kenya is doing with this is starting the conversation, getting the local actors together. So first is information. Let understand from the investors, what their challenges are, what they want to invest, then introduce them to the entrepreneurs who are looking for that pipeline. Not necessarily pitching sessions. Again, I think that's a Western context, but just getting them together in a room to understand. But then the second thing is, it's not just about money, it's also about the networks, the connections. I think when you bring in local investors, they can open doors and give advice and mentorship in a way that potentially somebody who's not run a business here cannot do. And thirdly, it's a policy environment. The role of the government, again, it's not to invest, it's not to do things, but it's to kind of enable catalytic funding to happen and to build that trust on both sides.